Alright, so today's lesson is about adding fractions. This week we're going to focus on all four operations with fractions. Over the past 2 quarters we've learned how to apply some of the foundational concepts of algebra with integers and decimals. This quarter our focus is going to be on applying those same foundational things with fractions. Because of this, the use of the calculator will not be allowed. To give you all one last chance to start learning your multiplication tables, you are going to be provided with assistance. You should notice that there are no 1s, 2s, or 5s in this. This is what's typically going to be on your sheets. If your teacher is doing it similar, they can even have them up on the wall, but typically this is going to be on your sheets. But again, there's no reason for me to put 1s on there. We know everything multiplied by 1 is 1. We know that if we're doing 2 times 4, we simply count by 2s and go 2, 4, 6, 8. So use 4 fingers. Counting by 2s, you can do the same thing with 5s. 5 times 3 would be 5, 10, 15 because I got to 3, so counting by 5s would tell me that. Eventually the 9s will go away after about 2 or 3 weeks or so. Again, so 9s eventually will go. The reason the 9s will go is because you need to start practicing recognizing that there is a pattern. 9 times 3 starts with a 2, 9 times 4 starts with a 3, 9 times 6 starts with a 5. Each one of these starts with a number that is one less than the number itself. So 9 times 4, 4 down 1 is 3. 9 times 6, count down from 6, you get to 5. 9 times 8, count down from 8, you get to 7. That's one part. The second part you need to notice about your 9s is that 2 plus 7 is 9, 3 plus 6 is 9, 5 and 4 is 9, 6 and 3 is 9, 7 and 2 is 9, 8 and 1 is 9. So if I were to ignore this part here and simply put 9 times 5, which isn't on that list, you could say, well, 5 is going to drop down to 4. And then the number that adds up to 4 to make it 9 is 5. And 9 times 5 would be 45. If you were to say 9 times 7, you would say, well, 7 is going to drop down to be 6, and the number that adds to 6 to make it 9 is 3, and notice that 9 times 7 is 63. So that's something you want to work on because, again, after 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks or so, we're going to take those 9s away, and then from there we're going to take out each one of these rows as we keep moving forward until there's no more at all to work with. So make sure you're taking advantage this time. Make sure you're practicing because, again, eventually there will be no chart. Just make sure you use it to help you memorize the numbers. So let's look at the process of adding fractions. You should have noticed how simple the problem was in the bell ringer. It's only because this was already given a common denominator. Most fractions will require you to rename at least one fraction to create common denominator. So let's look at some more realistic examples and go from there. 3/4 and 1/6. What we have been taught to do is to focus on the bigger number and count by that number until you find something that 4 goes into. Well, 4 doesn't go into 6. The second multiple of 6, which would be 6 times 2, is 12. 4 does go into 12, and so that is my common denominator. Again, we have worked on this, so if you're having issues with that, email me so I can try to get you some videos that actually have explained the parts that we're getting to. Outside of that, you would multiply 4 by 3 to make 12. Again, 4 times 3 makes 12. And so you would turn that to be 3 times 3. 6 times 2 makes 12, so you're going to multiply that by 2, which makes that into that. And there we go. Alright. I think that's your common denominator. I don't think they needed you to actually rename them. There we go. Yeah, it didn't. But either way, if you were going to work this out, let's go ahead and finish it up. You would leave the 12 alone because, again, the bottom doesn't change. 9/12 and 2/12 would make 11/12 in the end. If you're looking at 4/7 and 1/8, again, I would count by the bigger number. And you don't need to write it, but you need to keep it in your head. 7 is not going to 8. Well, 8 times 2 is 16. 7 doesn't go into 16. 8 times 3 is 24. 7 doesn't go into 24. 8 times 4 is 32. 7 doesn't go into 32. 8 times 5 is 40. 7 doesn't go into 40. 8 times 6 is 48. 7 doesn't go into 8. 8 times 7 is 56. How do I know 56 should be it? Because these two numbers multiply to make 56. It's not smart to just use that shortcut because sometimes it's the other number. For example, 4 times 6 is 24. And notice that our common denominator was 12. So you just want to be careful whenever you do that because you never know what might happen. Either way, 56 is our number. So again, 56 here, 56 here, copy the symbol. 7 times 8 makes 56. And so you would do 4 times 8, which is 32. 8 times 7 makes 56. So we multiply 7 up here. 32 minus 7 is, I believe, 25. And so that would be your answer on that if we were asked to do that. So again, just be sure that you ask about each process that you need. Each of our classwork days will recycle old information as well as preview upcoming information. You'll see the problems on multiple sheets, so take advantage of the time that you're given. Ask early so we can try to fix it as the days go by. 1 second. I hope that wasn't too loud. I was trying to hit pause or mute and I just couldn't get it. Sorry about that. What is the common denominator for this problem? So again, common denominator, we are looking at 3/8 and 7/10. 10. 8 doesn't go into 10. Second multiple of 10 is 20. 8 doesn't go into 20. Third multiple of 10 is 30. No. Next is 40. 8 does go into 40 because 8 times 5 is 40. So 40, as it's just asking for the common denominator, would be our part there. So some of the stuff on the problems we're doing today in class, at least, are just going to ask you for the common denominator, and that is fine. Rename both fractions based on the common denominator. So what we have to do first is find the common denominator. Again, count by the bigger number. 3 does not go into 5. 3 does not go into 10. 3 does go into 15. So we'll have our 15 here. We'll copy it, and we'll have our 15 there. 3 times 5 makes 15, so we'll multiply 2 by 5 to get 10. 5 times 3 makes 15, so we'll multiply by 3 there. They're not asking you to solve it. All they said was rename both fractions based on a common denominator, and so that's what we did here. So one of our problems is going to say just find the common denominator. One's going to say find the common denominator and rename the fractions, and the other one's going to say to actually add it. So when we look at 5, 6, and 1/3, the bigger number 6, notice that 3 does go into 6. And so therefore we actually can just choose 6 as our common denominator. So do the first part and the second part. 6 didn't change, therefore 5 should not change. 3 would multiply by 2. 1 times 2 is 2. And so the last thing you do is 5 over 6, and 2 over 6 would make 7 over 6. Now, one skill you might want to keep in mind is whenever you get something like that, converting that, 6 goes into 7 one time with 1 left over out of 6. You don't always need to do that, and really I wouldn't do that often, but it's a skill that you might need just in case you're working on a problem and it gives the answer in what we call a mixed number. This is called an improper fraction because the bigger top number is bigger. This is called a mixed number because it's got a whole number mixed in with a fraction. But again, just keeping all that in mind, if you ever see that and need to do it, just ask me about it and I'll be glad to try to explain it to you. All these problems will be on your work for the day. There will also be old problems on the worksheet. Again, it should help you to strengthen your ability to remember the process. For others, it should give you an opportunity to ask about how to do it. Your daily practice will typically have 3 phases potentially. First thing you'll do is work alone, where you'll answer every problem that you know first. That's very important. Do the problems that are, try to definitely get the first 5 or so, because the first 5 typically are dealing with the new information. But after you get past the first 5, if you don't know the one with number 6, then skip number 6 for now. Move on to number 7. If you know how to answer number 7, then answer it. If you don't know number 8, skip 8, move on to number 9. But go to everything you know first, just like if you were taking a test. That way you actually get the answers of the problems that you know. After you do everything you know, go back and do the ones you think you know. So in other words, maybe you don't know it specifically, but you think you might be able to work it out. And then go back, if you still have time, to go back on other problems and, make some decisions and try some things out. Phase 2, after you've done this main part here, is on occasion you're going to get a chance to discuss with classmates. So depending on how well you handle this phase, it might be allowed or taken away. Students learn better from each other. This is the time when you compare your answers. This is not when you just sit and talk about things that have nothing to do with the work. It's when you say, hey, how did you do number 4, because I didn't understand how to do it. If they got it right, and then they can explain it to you, and maybe it'll stick and help you out. The third phase is where I work out the problems, and that's when you actually learn. You have to make sure you ask about any problems that you missed. If you missed a problem and you don't say anything to me, then you're not going to get any better for tomorrow. So that's where you have to say, hey, I didn't get that answer. Even if that's all you say is, hey, I didn't get that answer, and then I can look at your paper and find it, or whatever it might be. But your learning does not come from you just watching me work them out. It comes from you saying, I didn't get that answer. What did I do wrong? then I help you figure it out, and then maybe you get better for later. But again, what happens is you'll get a little bit better. Maybe you make the same mistake tomorrow. Maybe you make the same mistake the day after that. But after 3 or 4 days of messing up, eventually you will not make that mistake and things will start to work out. You will still have quizzes and tests at the end of each week, so be sure to keep this in mind as you decide whether or not to ask for help throughout the week. Part of your assessments will be on paper. This is for fractions, decimals, long multiplication, and so on. The other part probably will be on Math Excel, but again, your work will be handed in for credit. It is a transition, but as long as you communicate clearly and respectfully, again, we should be able to make it smooth. So let's go ahead and get started. Again, if you're at home, just make sure you took good notes. Make sure you think about what's going on, and make sure that you email me if you need me to send you the work for the day so you can get some practice and see what's going on. Good luck.